You're watching GMT on BBC World News. Our top story: can the US put forward a coherent strategy for the Middle East? The US Secretary of State is on a key visit to the region to convince allies that America is not in retreat.
We urge every country to take meaningful action to crush terrorism and denounce its ideological roots. You'll not fight these battles alone.
An opposition candidate wins the Democratic Republic of Congo's presidential election. The runner-up, though, cries foul, denouncing an electoral coup. Mystery radio signals from a distant galaxy picked up by a huge telescope in Canada. Might we really not be alone? Also in the programme, Aaron is here looking at the bumpy road ahead for the car industry.
Yeah, hey, bumpy indeed, Tim, because today we've heard from both Jaguar Land Rover and Ford, both announcing they're cutting thousands of jobs across Europe. Volkswagen is warning of enormous challenges this year, 2019. So stay with us. We're going to take a look at how a perfect storm, which is a China slowdown, worries over diesel engines and Brexit, are all driving these changes.
Hello and welcome to GMT with me, Tim Wilcox. Can the US put forward a coherent strategy for the Middle East? That is the question being seriously asked by some in the region after President Trump's abrupt announcement last month that he was bringing US troops home from Syria. He later appeared to row back, saying they would withdraw slowly. Well, his Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, will shortly be giving a major speech in Cairo, part of a tour designed to reassure allies that the US is not in retreat. He's just given a news conference where our correspondent Barbara Plett-Usher asked him if the president's statements on the Syria pullout were contradictory.
There's no contradiction whatsoever. This is a story made up by the media. That's fine. You all write what you'd like. The president's been very clear, and Ambassador Bolton and I have been very clear about this too. The threat from radical Islamic terrorism is real. ISIS continues. We fight them in many regions around the country. Our commitment to continuing to prevent Daesh growth, ISIS's growth, is real. It's important. We will continue at that. We're going to do it in a way in one particular place, Syria, differently. The United States decision, President Trump's decision to withdraw our troops has been made. We will do that. And so it is possible to hold in your head the thought that we would withdraw our forces, our uniformed forces, from Syria and continue America's crushing campaign, where we have taken down 99% of the caliphate in Syria, and continue that. We are intent upon that. And I've told each of the leaders here in the region that I've met that we're committed to that.
Mike Pompeo. Well, let's speak to the BBC's Sally Nabil, who joins us from the American University in Cairo, where Mr. Pompeo was making a speech on the 10th anniversary, more or less, Sally, of when President Obama gave that speech about the new beginnings of the relationship in the Middle East following the Iraq war. How big are the concerns in Egypt about the current policy and strategy of President Trump?
In fact, I'm here in the American University in Cairo, where Mr. Pompeo is expected to arrive in a couple of hours to give his important speech where he will lay out a broad strategy for the Middle East. And for the Egyptian regime, they are on much better terms with the Trump administrations than their terms, the relationships with the Obama administration. There were a lot of tension between the current Egyptian regime and the Obama administration, which was pushing hard on the issue of human rights. But as we have just seen in the press conference, Mr. Pompeo, when he was asked about political prisoners and human rights in Egypt, he gave a very brief answer, saying that we discussed the issue of human rights constantly with our Egyptian partners, but he didn't get into more detail about tens of thousands of political prisoners, as human rights groups say, who are being held here in Egypt. So definitely the Egyptian regime is far more happy with the current US administrations than with the Obama administration. And actually one of the main key points that's expected to be included in Mr. Pompeo's speech today is his strategy concerning Iran, whereas the Obama tried to strike, or managed to strike, a deal with Iran. Pompeo, or the US administration, sees Iran as a main threat to the region, and a lot of analysts say that Pompeo will lay down a very different strategy than that from Obama.
All right, Sally Nabil in Cairo, thank you very much. Now, if implemented, President Trump's to withdraw troops from Syria would have major implications for neighbouring Iraq. The BBC's Nafiseh Kohnavard reports from a US outpost on the Syria-Iraq border where the long battle against Islamic State militants is far from over.
A US artillery unit getting locked and loaded. This is Iraq's border with Syria. There are more than 200 US and French boots on the ground here. Set up just a month ago, we have been given exclusive access to this base on Iraq's border with Syria. For all the talk of the defeat of the Islamic State group, this unit is working around the clock to fight the militants. And the threat here is very real.
No, yeah, it was ISIS convoy that was heading from the river. We'll be able to see here in a second. They were heading north across the desert to go attack the SDF location.
How big was that?
It was at least, I think it was about half a dozen vehicles full of fighters.
The fight against IS means there is now more than 5,000 US troops positioned across Iraq.
The reality is that ISIS is very fluid and can of course just blend back in with the population. They could be just driving a white pickup truck one day and move within just a few kilometers of the Iraqi border.
We visited this base a few days before President Trump's surprise announcement to pull troops out of Syria.
Now we've won. It's time to come back. They're getting ready. You're going to see them soon.
But he has since made it clear the boots on the ground here in Iraq will stay. We have been told that these remote US outposts will now take on a much more important role in the fight against IS.
I don't think it's helpful to try to put a timeline to this fight. I think what's important is that not only do we defeat ISIS, but then also help the Iraqi security forces to be able to prevent the reemergence. So it's not simply a military defeat, but also a long-lasting partnership that we want to maintain with the Iraqi security forces.
And while questions remain about America's wider role in the Middle East, it's clear what their allies think about the plan.
ارتفاع في معنويات لدى عناصر داعش على موضوع انسحاب القوات الأمريكية. الجزء الشرقي من نهر الفرات يقع غرب الحدود العراقية السورية تتواجد به عناصر داعش الإرهابي في منطقة شريط على الضفة الشرقية نهر الفرات لمسافة 20 أو 25 كيلومتر. حقيقة وجود عناصر داعش كقوة متكاملة بهذا المكان يشكل تهديد على القاطع.
US allies are concerned the departure could create a power vacuum in the region, a vacuum that could be filled by Iran. It all looks the same from here, but the area behind me is controlled by many different forces. On my right, we have the Syrian army, Lebanese Hezbollah, and forces loyal to Iran. And on the left, there is the Syrian Democratic Forces backed by the US, as well as IS. These Iran-backed paramilitaries have played a key role in the fight against Islamic State. But they have always opposed the US presence in the region. For them, the US leaving Syria is good news.
اليوم الأمريكان مشروعهم بإذن الله فشل في الشرق الأوسط، فشل بالعراق وسوريا. وجود القوات الأمريكية بالعراق مرفوضا جملة وتفصيلا، وسيتم خروجهم عبر الطرق الدبلوماسية، وإن لم يخرجوا فهناك إرادة بإذن الله ستخرج الأمريكان كما أخرجتهم سابقا من العراق.
The mixed messages from Washington have created a lot of confusion on the ground. Until the White House has made a clear decision, these soldiers in Iraq will be waiting in the wings. Nafiseh Kohnavard, BBC News, on the Iraqi border with Syria.
You're watching GMT. In other stories, a federal court in Los Angeles